Hello everyone, and welcome back to Deep Chronicles World. Before you cozy up and drift off into dreamland, I've got a fun idea. Why not drop a comment below and share where in the world you're tuning in from? And hey, if you're enjoying these stories as much as I love sharing them, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. Now, let's get comfy, relax, and dive into tonight's tale. Ready? Let's begin. One day, a woman named Claire returned home late at night after a grueling shift at the hospital where she worked as a nurse. The streets of London were eerily quiet, the fog rolling in like a silent predator, swallowing the glow of the streetlights. Exhausted, she stood outside her workplace, shivering in the cold, and called for a taxi. Moments later, a black cab pulled up in front of her, its headlights cutting through the mist like two glowing eyes. She climbed into the back seat, relieved to be out of the biting cold. The driver, a shadowy figure obscured by the dim interior light, remained silent as she gave him her home address. Claire thought nothing of it. At first, London cabbies weren't known for their chattiness. But as the taxi began to move, she noticed something unsettling. The driver wasn't following the usual route. Her heart began to race as she recognized the streets slipping past the window. "Excuse me?" she said, her voice trembling. "This isn't the right way to my house. You're going the wrong way." The driver didn't respond. Instead, he began to laugh, a low, guttural sound that sent chills down her spine. The laughter grew louder, more manic, until it filled the cab like a suffocating cloud. Panic surged through Claire's veins. Without thinking, she grabbed the door handle and yanked it open, throwing herself out of the moving vehicle. She hit the pavement hard, pain exploding in her leg as she tumbled across the asphalt. The taxi sped away, its taillights disappearing. Into the fog, Claire lay there, gasping for breath, her mind racing. She had narrowly escaped something sinister, but the encounter would haunt her for the rest of her life. This incident took place in 2002 in Britain, specifically on a street in London. And it was only the beginning of a series of horrifying events that would grip the city in fear. In another part of London, a homeless man named Tom was rummaging through garbage bins in a dimly lit alleyway. He was searching for leftover food or anything of value to trade for a meal. The stench of rotting waste filled the air, but Tom was used to it. He had been living on the streets for years. As he lifted the lid of a particularly large bin, his eyes widened in horror. Inside, partially concealed by black plastic bags, was a human leg. His stomach churned as he pushed aside the bags, revealing a decomposing head. The sight was so gruesome that Tom stumbled backward, nearly losing his balance. He had seen many things in his life, but nothing like this. Terrified, he ran to the nearest police station, his heart pounding in his chest. The officers on duty listened to his frantic account and immediately dispatched a team to the scene. What they found was beyond anything they had ever encountered. The garbage bin contained dismembered body parts, head and legs, belonging to a woman. The investigators quickly realized that the killer had disposed of the victim in this location, likely discarding the murder weapon in the same area. They began a thorough search of the surrounding bins, but to their surprise, they found nothing. This led them to consider a chilling possibility. Perhaps the killer had murdered more than one person and scattered their body parts randomly across the area. The team decided to review surveillance footage from nearby cameras, hoping to catch a glimpse of the perpetrator. However, the footage revealed nothing suspicious. The killer seemed to know the area intimately, avoiding the cameras with ease. Frustrated, the investigators turned their attention to nearby garbage disposal sites. determined to find more evidence. Their persistence paid off when they discovered a large number of body parts: men's heads, young women's hands, and elderly women's legs, all mixed together and scattered in different locations. The grim findings confirmed their worst fears. They were dealing with a serial killer who needed to be apprehended as quickly as possible before he could claim more victims. The police began interrogating residents of the area, asking if anyone had noticed suspicious behavior. All the neighbors pointed to one man, Anthony Hardy. The investigator in charge, Detective Inspector Mark Harris, was intrigued. "What's strange about this man?" he asked. "Why are you all suspicious of him?" The neighbors exchanged uneasy glances before one of them spoke up. "He's always been a strange man with bizarre behavior. No one can get close to him or even talk to him. He has no friends at all." Harris was surprised by the unanimity of their suspicions. He decided to dig deeper into Hardy's background. What he discovered was alarming. Hardy was in his 50s and lived between the two areas where the garbage bags with the body parts had been found. Harris also found that Hardy had been summoned to the police station months earlier after a neighbor filed a complaint against him. The police decided to search Hardy's house. Without any warning, they arrived at his doorstep. When Hardy opened the door, they entered immediately. Hardy was visibly shocked. "Do you have a search warrant?" he demanded. Harris handed him the warrant and began searching the house. In the bedroom, they found the naked body of a woman lying on the bed. Harris turned to Hardy, his voice cold. "We've been looking for you everywhere. We've even started a trend in London called 'Where Are You, Hardy?'" Hardy was arrested on the spot, and the body was taken to the forensic lab for analysis. The results were surprising. The woman was identified as Sally Rhodes, a 30-year-old who had died of natural causes due to pre-existing heart problems. There were no signs of violence or foul play. With no evidence against him, the police were forced to release Hardy. However, Harris remained convinced that Hardy was involved. "It's impossible for this woman to have died naturally in his bed. At the same time, all his neighbors are suspicious of him," he said. "We need to find concrete evidence before he targets another victim." The police decided to monitor Hardy's apartment 24/7. 2 officers were assigned to watch his movements. They noticed that Hardy left his apartment with the door wide open, as if he had no fear of anyone entering. The officers seized the opportunity and entered the apartment. The foul smell that greeted them was overwhelming, a stench of rotting flesh that made their stomachs turn. As they searched the apartment, they found strange drawings on the walls and floors, depicting grotesque figures and symbols. They also discovered a table filled with videotapes and recorders. The officers took the tapes and began reviewing their contents. What they found was horrifying. The tapes showed Hardy imprisoning women in his apartment, assaulting them, while wearing a red devil mask. The police searched for the mask and found it on Hardy's bed. In the bedroom, the smell was even stronger. One officer noticed a black bag sticking out from under the bed. He pulled it out and found a saw, a cleaver, and the body of a woman inside. The weapons and the body were taken to the forensic lab for analysis. The results confirmed that the weapons had Hardy's fingerprints on them, and the bloodstains matched one of the victims, a woman named Brigitte, a divorced mother who had turned to sex work to make ends meet. The police realized that all of Hardy's victims were sex workers. They also discovered that Hardy had a strange obsession with his red devil mask, which he wore before committing his crimes. As the investigation deepened, the police uncovered more about Hardy's past. He had once been a university graduate with a stable job. He married and lived a normal life until he and his wife decided to move to Australia for better job opportunities. However, his wife began to notice strange changes in his behavior. He developed disturbing tendencies, enjoying inflicting pain on her before intimacy. She resisted, leading to a major conflict between them. One day, Hardy attacked her with a frozen plastic container, knocking her unconscious. He then dragged her to a bathtub filled with water, intending to drown her. She woke up, fought back, and managed to escape. She reported the incident to the police, but when they searched Hardy's house, they found no evidence to support her claims. Hardy had cleverly hidden his tracks, and the police had no choice but to let him go. From that point on, Hardy became obsessed with revenge. He began stalking his ex-wife, following her everywhere she went. One night, as she returned home late, she took a taxi. The driver was silent and unresponsive. When she realized the taxi was going the wrong way, she panicked and jumped out of the moving vehicle, breaking her leg in the process. She later reported the incident to the police, recognizing the driver's voice as Hardy's. The police intensified their search for Hardy, but he seemed to have vanished. They discovered that he had been using a loyalty card called Nectar to collect points from purchases. When they checked his transactions, they found that he had been buying garbage bags, confirming their suspicions that he was the killer. Although they had identified him as the culprit, it was too late for many of his victims. The police launched a massive manhunt, offering a reward for information leading to his capture. Journalists questioned why the police hadn't arrested him earlier, especially after finding a body under his bed. Harris explained that Hardy was extremely cunning and could have easily manipulated the media, claiming the body was planted in his apartment. They needed concrete evidence to ensure he couldn't escape justice. The police noticed that Hardy's apartment was covered in strange drawings of dogs and demons. The rituals he performed, as seen in the videos he recorded, were far from normal. He would wear his red devil mask before assaulting his victims, performing what seemed like summoning rituals before killing them with a cleaver. The police used luminol, a chemical that reveals traces of blood, to confirm that the apartment was a crime scene. They also found pieces of skin hanging on the walls, which forensic analysis confirmed belonged to his victims. Psychologists who studied Hardy's case concluded that he was mentally and psychologically disturbed, embodying the persona of a devil during his crimes. The police finally caught a break when a retired officer reported seeing a man resembling Hardy walking casually in the street. The police surrounded Hardy, who initially pretended to surrender but then pulled out a weapon and attacked one of the officers. In the ensuing struggle, Hardy was shot in the leg and apprehended. During interrogation, Hardy denied all charges, claiming that anyone could have entered his open apartment and committed the crimes. However, the police had gathered overwhelming evidence against him, including videos and photos of his victims. Despite his denials, Hardy was convicted and sentenced to life in prison. To this day, the forensic experts and investigators remained puzzled by how he managed to kill some of his victims without leaving any traces of violence. The case of Anthony Hardy, known as the London Monster, remains one of the most chilling serial killer cases in history. His crimes were marked by extreme brutality and a twisted obsession with his red devil mask. Although he was eventually caught, the scars he left on his victims and their families will never heal. The police learned valuable lessons from this case, but the question of how Hardy committed some of his crimes without leaving evidence remains unanswered. The streets of London may have returned to normal, but the shadow of the London monster lingers, a grim reminder of the darkness that can lurk in the human soul. See you tomorrow.